I thought I was buying beauty for my garden, but what I brought home was danger hiding behind petals. I remember standing at a local nursery in Tampa, Florida, staring at rows of lush plants, their leaves glossy under the morning sun. Each one looked like a promise of color, peace, and pride. I had no idea that some of those same plants would soon make me question everything I thought I knew about gardening. One almost cost me my dog's life. Another burned my skin for weeks, and yet they were all nursery bestsellers. So before you grab that next pretty flower or vine, stay with me. I'm about to reveal the 9 plants I'll never buy again, and the safer, even more beautiful alternatives that made my garden thrive instead. If you're someone who loves your garden but wants to keep it safe for your pets, your family, and even your local ecosystem, this is for you. And hey, before we dig in, literally, don't forget to subscribe if you love learning about plants that don't backfire. We grow smarter here, one plant at a time. Let's start with something that fooled me completely because it looked innocent, smelled amazing, and yet turned out to be the most dangerous plant I've ever owned. 1. Oleander, the beautiful killer. If you've ever driven through Southern California, Texas, or Florida, you've probably seen it. Tall shrubs with thick green leaves and clusters of red, pink, or white flowers. Oleander, or Nerium oleander, looks like the kind of plant that belongs in a resort garden. That's why I bought it. I wanted my backyard to look like a Mediterranean retreat. But I had no idea every single part of that plant is toxic. Not just mildly irritating, but deadly. The leaves, flowers, even the smoke from burning trimmed branches contain cardiac glycosides, compounds that can cause nausea, slowed heartbeat, and even heart failure. I learned that the hard way when I pruned my oleander without gloves and accidentally brushed my arm against the sap. Within hours, my skin started to itch and burn. I thought it was an allergic reaction until my neighbor, a retired nurse, saw the rash and told me to get rid of the plant immediately. The real shock came a week later when I read about pets being poisoned after chewing fallen oleander leaves. My dog, Buddy, a golden retriever who loved sniffing everything, had been wandering near that very bush. That was the day I dug it up and threw it out for good. If you live in USDA zones 8 through 10, you'll see nurseries selling oleanders everywhere because they handle heat and drought so well. But trust me, it's not worth the risk. My safer alternative? Hibiscus, especially the Rose of Sharon, Hibiscus syriacus. It has the same showy blooms, thrives in similar warm zones, and it's completely safe for kids, pets, and your conscience. When I replaced my oleander hedge with hibiscus, I didn't lose color or life. I gained peace of mind. Every morning now, hummingbirds hover around the blossoms, and I can breathe easy knowing my garden isn't a hidden hazard anymore. 2. Dumb cane, the houseplant that can make you speechless. You've probably seen this one sitting proudly on kitchen counters, office desks, or living room corners. The dumb cane, Dieffenbachia, is a tropical houseplant with tall stems and creamy green leaves that look like they've been painted by hand. It's a favorite in nurseries across the United States, Canada, and the UK because it grows easily and brightens up dark corners. But here's the truth. I didn't learn until it was almost too late. Dumb cane can burn your mouth and throat if chewed. Its sap contains sharp calcium oxalate crystals that can swell the tongue and make breathing or swallowing difficult. Hence the name dumb cane. I discovered this after my curious nephew visited one weekend. He was just 5 and fascinated by plants. While I was cooking, he broke off a leaf and touched it to his lips. Seconds later, he started crying. His lips and tongue had turned red and swollen. I panicked, rinsed his mouth, and rushed him to urgent care. Thankfully, he recovered quickly, but that plant was out of my house the next morning. The most unsettling part? Dumb cane is sold in nearly every garden center, from Home Depot to Lowe's, with no warning label about its toxicity. And if you have cats or dogs, it's even riskier. I replaced mine with a prayer plant, Maranta leuconera. Safe, pet-friendly, and just as beautiful. Its leaves fold up at night, almost like it's praying, a charming little habit that delights anyone who sees it. For slightly larger spaces, Calathea orbifolia is another wonderful choice. Broad, patterned leaves, easy to care for, and safe for every curious visitor, whether human or furry. So if you're in zones 9 to 11 where tropical houseplants love to thrive, go for calatheas or prayer plants instead. You'll still get that lush indoor jungle vibe without the hidden danger. By this point, I had learned something important. Danger in gardening doesn't always come with warning signs. It can hide behind glossy leaves, inside harmless-looking sap, or beneath the soil of something that everyone grows. But as I soon discovered, not all danger comes from toxins. Sometimes it comes from plants that refuse to stay where you put them, that take over your yard, your fence, and even your neighbor's garden. And that's exactly what happened with my next two mistakes. Plants that didn't poison, but invaded. 3. English ivy, the creeper that wouldn't stop. I bought my first English ivy, Hedera helix, because I wanted that charming storybook look. You know, the kind you see on cottages in the English countryside. I imagined green vines climbing my fence and draping gracefully over my porch. It looked harmless in the nursery, sitting in its little pot with perfect glossy leaves. But 6 months later, it looked like a green monster had eaten my backyard. English ivy doesn't just grow, it clings. Its tiny aerial roots dig into wood, brick, even siding. At first, I thought it was beautiful, but then I noticed something else. The wood beneath was starting to rot. My fence looked like it had been through a storm. By the end of the year, the ivy had crawled over my shed, smothered the flowers beneath, and was heading toward the neighbor's side. I spent an entire weekend with gloves and shears, pulling and cutting, only for it to grow back thicker. That's when I learned the truth. English ivy is classified as invasive in many U.S. regions, especially across the Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, and Pacific Northwest. It spreads fast, chokes native plants, and once it reaches trees, it can strangle them by cutting off light and nutrients. It was heartbreaking to realize something so pretty could do so much damage. When I finally cleared it out, the space looked bare for a while. But I found a safer, more manageable replacement. Boston ivy, Parthenocissus tricuspidata. It gives the same lush green look, turns deep red in fall, and won't destroy your structures. If you're in zones 4 through 8, Boston ivy gives you that climbing magic without the chaos. For those who want something with flowers instead of vines, climbing hydrangea is another great pick. Strong, controlled, and stunning when it blooms. It stays where it's planted, respects its boundaries, and still gives your fence or wall that cottage feel we all love. So, if you're tempted to plant English ivy, take it from me, you're not adding elegance. You're signing up for a battle. 4. Mint, the herb that thinks it owns the world. If there's one plant that fooled me completely, it's mint. Every gardener, beginner or pro, loves it. It smells good, tastes great, and seems harmless. When I planted mine in a corner bed in Zone 7, I thought I was being clever. Fresh mojitos, mint tea, maybe a few sprigs for desserts. 2 months later, I realized I had made a terrible mistake. Mint spreads through underground stems called rhizomes, which basically means it sends little runners under the soil and they pop up wherever they please. One day it was in the herb bed. A week later it was under my roses. By the third month, mint was everywhere. It grew through cracks in the walkway. It jumped to my raised beds. It even tried to grow under the fence into my neighbor's yard. I spent that summer trying to dig it out. Every time I thought I got it all, another patch would appear. I read later that even a small piece of root left behind can regrow, and believe me, it does. The worst part? Nurseries don't tell you this. They sell mint in cute little pots labeled easy to grow, without mentioning that it'll try to conquer your whole garden. If you live anywhere in zones 3 through 11, mint will thrive, but it'll also invade unless you control it. So here's what I wish someone told me earlier. If you love mint, grow it in a container only. Keep that container on a porch, patio, or raised surface so the roots can't reach soil. That's the only way to enjoy it without losing your sanity. As for replacements, I switched to lemon balm, Melissa officinalis, and parsley, Petroselinum crispum. Lemon balm has that same refreshing scent with a calming twist, perfect for teas and desserts, and parsley gives you culinary variety without the invasion. For gardeners who want an herbal spread that plays nice, oregano and thyme are great too. They grow steadily, smell divine, and stay where they belong. And here's the thing, I still love mint, but from a distance. When I see it at nurseries now, I smile, nod, and keep walking. Some plants just don't know how to share. That was the lesson I had to learn twice, first with ivy, then with mint. Not all plants destroy through poison. Some destroy through persistence. They steal space, block sunlight, and smother what you worked so hard to grow. It's like inviting a guest who refuses to leave. And that's when I realized my next set of mistakes wasn't about invaders or toxins. It was about plants that fought me. Plants that looked harmless until they touched my skin. I'm talking about the ones that burn, blister, and leave marks you'll remember for weeks. And yes, they were all right there, growing naturally in my own backyard. 5. Poison ivy and poison oak, the unwanted guests. Every gardener knows the saying, leaves of 3, let it be. But when you're in the middle of clearing a messy patch behind your shed in Zone 6, that advice comes too late. That's how I met poison ivy, Toxicodendron radicans, and its cousin, poison oak, Toxicodendron diversalobum. They were hiding among wildflowers near the back fence. Glossy green leaves, a bit shiny, nothing special. I thought they were just another harmless vine, so I pulled them out with my bare hands. Big mistake. By evening, my arms were on fire. Red bumps, swelling, and itching that felt like it came from inside my skin. I tried soap, creams, even oatmeal baths, but the rash spread. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. That's when I learned about urushiol, the oily resin inside these plants that causes allergic reactions in more than 80% of people. Here's the kicker. Even after you cut or burn the vines, urushiol stays active for years. That means if you toss it in a compost pile, it can still hurt you later. And if your gloves or tools touch the sap, the oil clings to them until you wash them with soap. Poison ivy grows wild across most of the eastern and central United States, while poison oak is more common in the West Coast and Southeast, especially in zones 5 through 10. Now, whenever I see those leaves of 3, I keep my distance, and I wear gloves, long sleeves, and boots when working near woods or fences. If you want a lush ground cover that won't attack you, go for Virginia creeper instead. It has 5 leaves instead of 3, grows beautifully in shade, and turns brilliant red in fall. It's non-toxic, safe for pets, and won't make your skin regret the weekend. 6. Euphorbia, the pretty plant with painful sap. When you see Euphorbia in a nursery, it looks like a dream. The Spurge family, as it's known, includes some of the most stylish plants on the market, from crown of thorns and poinsettias to low-growing succulents that add texture to modern gardens. I bought a few for my rock bed in Arizona, thinking they'd handle heat and drought perfectly. And they did, until I decided to trim one. I snapped a stem and white milky sap started dripping out. It looked harmless, even pretty against the sunlight. But within minutes my skin started to sting. By night, small blisters had appeared. That's when I found out Euphorbia's sap can burn skin and eyes, and in some cases cause long-lasting scars. Here's what makes it worse. That same sap can splay if you cut the plant under pressure. It can land on your arms or even your face without you realizing. Gardeners in the Southwest and coastal California, where Euphorbia is popular in zones 9 through 11, often discover this the hard way. Now, don't get me wrong, not all euphorbias are deadly, but nearly all of them have that irritating latex sap. So, if you must grow them, handle them like chemicals: gloves, goggles, and sleeves, every time. But if you're like me and prefer to sleep easy, there are much safer options. My favorite replacement is sedum, especially autumn joy. It has the same structural beauty, blooms beautifully, and invites pollinators instead of pain. Another wonderful choice is aloe vera, safe, medicinal, and, ironically, the very plant that soothes burns caused by others. After replacing my euphorbias with sedum, I noticed something else. My garden didn't lose its look, it lost its anxiety. I could finally weed, water, and trim without worrying about hidden burns. For months, I dealt with the scars and reminders those plants left behind. My skin healed, but my confidence took longer. I used to walk into nurseries excited. Now I walked in cautious, almost suspicious. I started reading every label twice, researching every Latin name, and even asking sellers whether plants were pet-safe or human-safe. And that's when I stumbled on something that hit even harder: plants that look beautiful, but can quietly kill pets. You see, I love animals as much as plants, and finding out that one of my garden favorites was deadly to dogs was a heartbreak I'll never forget. That's what I'll share next: the plant that nearly took my dog's life, the compound inside it that few people know about, and the tropical beauty I replaced it with. 7. Sago Palm, the silent pet killer. If you've ever visited nurseries in Florida, Texas, or California, you've probably seen it: the sago palm, Ficus revoluta. It looks ancient and exotic, like something from a tropical island. Its stiff, feather-like leaves fan out perfectly, and it gives your garden that resort look everyone wants. That's what drew me in. I planted 2 near my patio. They were the centerpiece, green, symmetrical, easy to care for. But one morning, my golden retriever Buddy started vomiting. At first, I thought he'd eaten something from the trash. The vet asked if there were any new plants in the yard. When I mentioned the sago palms, she went silent for a moment. Then she said, "Those are toxic. Extremely." The seeds and leaves of sago palms contain a toxin called psychocin, which attacks the liver. Just a small nibble can cause vomiting, seizures, and even death in dogs and cats. I'll never forget the guilt I felt when I realized I had planted poison right where Buddy loved to play. He spent 2 days under observation, on IV fluids and medication. Thankfully, he made it, but I didn't. Not emotionally, at least, not right away. That night, I dug both palms out of the ground and threw them away. If you want the same tropical vibe without the risk, go for Areca palm, Dipsis luciscens, or parlor palm, Comedea elegans. Both are safe, beautiful, and pet-friendly. For folks in zones 9 through 11, these palms grow well indoors and outdoors, bringing that lush coastal energy without the hidden danger. And if you're listening to this with a pet curled up beside you, take a quick look around after this video. Check your plants. Sometimes love means letting a plant go. 8. Ragweed and ornamental grasses, the allergen traps. Let's talk about something that doesn't kill, but sure can make you miserable. If you've ever stepped outside during late summer and found yourself sneezing with itchy eyes and a runny nose, you might blame the weather, but the real culprit could be growing right in your yard. I'm talking about ragweed, Ambrosia artemisifolia, and certain ornamental grasses like pampas grass and miscanthus. I planted pampas grass once because I loved its tall, fluffy plumes. They danced in the wind and looked magical at sunset. But within weeks, I started waking up congested and sneezing. My morning coffee turned into a tissue marathon. I thought I was developing allergies out of nowhere until my allergist asked what plants I'd added recently. Pampas grass, it turns out, produces tons of airborne pollen. The same goes for ragweed, which can release pollen that can travel for miles. Even if you don't see it, it's there, floating through the air and triggering allergic reactions. In the Midwest, South, and Northeast, zones 4 through 9, ragweed thrives in open spaces and disturbed soil. Once it finds your garden, it spreads like wildfire. I replaced my grasses with muhly grass, soft, airy, and pink in the fall, but far less allergenic. Another excellent substitute is fountain grass, Pennisedum alopecurides Hamel, a sterile variety that gives you the same dramatic look without the pollen chaos. If you're tired of sneezing your way through gardening season, this small switch can change everything. My mornings are peaceful again. No sneezing, no watery eyes, just the quiet sound of leaves moving in the wind. 9. Foxglove, the poison beauty in the shade. The last one on my list is the one that truly fooled me. Foxglove, Digitalis purpurea. If you've ever seen it, you know why it's irresistible. Tall stalks of bell-shaped flowers, pink, purple, or white, rising like spires in the shade. I remember planting mine near the back fence under a maple tree in Zone 6. Every morning I'd stop and stare at it, proud of how elegant it looked. But one evening, while browsing a gardening forum, I came across a post titled, "Plants That Can Kill You Without Trying." Foxglove was right there at the top. Every part of the plant contains digitalis glycosides, the same compounds used to make heart medicine. In controlled doses, they can save lives, but in raw form, they can stop a heart. It doesn't take much, just a leaf or two. That hit me hard. I imagined a child touching it, or a curious pet taking a bite. Suddenly, those pretty purple bells didn't look so charming anymore. I replaced them with snapdragons, Antirrhinum majus, and penstemon, both of which have vertical blooms and come in vibrant colors. They grow beautifully in zones 4 through 10, are safe for pets, and bring the same dramatic flair without the danger. I kept one dried foxglove bloom in a jar on my shelf, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that beauty can deceive. Gardening, like life, teaches you the hard lessons quietly. By this point, my garden looked completely different from when I started. The oleander, the ivy, the euphorbia, all gone. What was left were plants I could trust. The colors were softer, the air cleaner, and most of all, I could walk through my yard barefoot again. No fear, no regret. But it wasn't just about removing bad plants. It was about learning something deeper, that gardening isn't about what looks good for a season, it's about what stays good for years, for you, your family, and the world around you. And that realization set the tone for what came next, the reflection that tied all these lessons together, because every mistake had given me something I couldn't buy in any nursery: wisdom. When I look back, each mistake taught me something different. The oleander taught me that not every beautiful thing deserves a place in your home. Some things are dangerous, no matter how much care you give them. The dumb cane reminded me that curiosity, especially from children and pets, can turn deadly fast when we don't know what we're planting. The English ivy showed me how control is an illusion. Some plants, like some people, just take and take until they choke everything else around them. Mint taught me patience and humility. Even something harmless can overwhelm you if you don't set boundaries early. Poison ivy and euphorbia reminded me that danger doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, hides, and waits for you to get too comfortable. And the sago palm, that one taught me love, the kind that hurts. Because realizing you almost lost your pet to a plant you planted yourself, that changes you. It makes you cautious, but also compassionate. You start thinking beyond looks, beyond trends. You start planting with purpose. Ragweed and foxglove sealed the final lesson. Nature gives, but she also warns. We just have to listen. After removing the bad plants, I started rebuilding, slowly, thoughtfully. I filled the empty corners with calatheas, prayer plants, and aloe vera. I added muhly grass for movement, snapdragons for color, and hibiscus for that bright tropical joy. For my shady patch, I planted Virginia creeper, and under the kitchen window, a container of lemon balm that still makes my evenings smell like calm tea. And when the wind moves through them now, I hear something new, not chaos, not buzzing or sneezing, but peace. My backyard may not be the flashiest on the street anymore, but it's alive in a different way. Birds come back every morning, bees hover near the blossoms, and Buddy sleeps safely under the shade. Sometimes I catch myself smiling just thinking about it, not because it's perfect, but because it's honest. Every plant that grows there now has earned its place. I've met so many gardeners who measure success by how full their beds are, how exotic their blooms look, or how fast they can post a new picture online. But here's the truth I learned the hard way. A safe garden is a successful garden. You don't need poisonous elegance or invasive beauty to have something special. You just need to know what belongs and what doesn't. If you're listening to this right now, wondering whether you've made some of the same mistakes, you probably have. We all have. Maybe you fought off ivy that wouldn't quit, or maybe you've dealt with skin rashes that came from who knows what behind your shed. Maybe you've lost a pet, or spent sleepless nights regretting a plant you thought was harmless. I get it. I've been there. But that's what makes gardeners who they are. We learn through the dirt, the blisters, and the heartbreak. We mess up, we dig again, and somehow we grow better than before. One of my grandmother's favorite sayings still echoes in my mind. A wise gardener knows that not every green thing belongs in the garden. I didn't understand it back then. I do now. It's not just about plants. It's about life, about knowing when to let go of what looks good but harms you quietly. Whether it's a toxic plant, a bad habit, or a draining routine, sometimes growth starts with removal. Today, my garden reminds me of that truth every morning. It's not the same garden I once dreamed of. It's better. It's safer. It's alive in a deeper way. And maybe that's the lesson hiding behind every root and leaf, that beauty and danger can look the same until you take a closer look. When I walk out at dawn, dew still clinging to the blades of grass, I think about how close I came to giving up gardening entirely. But instead of quitting, I started over, with a clearer head and a braver heart. Every mistake I made led to a better choice. Every plant I regretted buying led me to a plant worth keeping. And that's something I want you to take with you today. Your garden doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. If a plant isn't serving your home, your health, or your peace, replace it. If something feels off, research it. If you're not sure what's safe, ask. There's no shame in learning, only danger in staying ignorant. Because when you plant with intention, your garden doesn't just grow, it gives back. So here's what I want you to do before the day ends. Take a slow walk through your yard or your balcony garden. Look closely. Ask yourself, do I really know what's growing here? If you find any of the plants I mentioned today, oleander, dumb cane, English ivy, mint, poison ivy, Euphorbia, Sago Palm, ragweed, or foxglove, think twice. And if you're ready to make your garden safer, start replacing them one by one. I promise, every swap will make your space lighter, calmer, and more welcoming. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to subscribe. Next week, I'll be showing you the plants that save other plants, natural defenders that keep pests away, and make your garden thrive without chemicals. We grow smarter here, one plant at a time, and together we're creating gardens that not only look alive, but truly are. So, plant safely, grow with heart, and remember, green hearts forever.